Elizabeth Monroe.
Hello and welcome to the July 16th edition of the Bubb Report. Following reports of two high-profile suicides in Grenada involving young females and the slight uptick in murders for the first half of 2023, we have assembled a panel of two experts to discuss crime and mental health in Grenada. Despite its prevalence across Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean, mental health is often an under-discussed and under-resourced area. A large part of this has to do with the stigma and associated taboos that surround mental illnesses. On the crime front, the island recorded 2 homicides last week, with another shooting incident in Lansapine in which the victim is currently warded at the General Hospital. Finally, on our program, we sit for an exclusive one-on-one interview with an Australian citizen of Grenadian descent, Elizabeth Monroe, as she chronicles her decade-long journey of finding her Grenadian family. Elizabeth is the daughter of the late Carlton Monroe, who was feared dead by his Grenadian family until 2020, when Elizabeth finally found her Grenadian uncle, Wilford. Elizabeth's journey of discovery finally came to a head when she met members of her Grenadian family for the first time in Toronto, Canada on Tuesday, July 4th. Our executive producer, Dr. Bubb, was on hand to witness the reunion and produced a special feature for this week's program. And finally, as we continue our tributes to the late Madonna Harford, we will be joined by two citizens who knew her outside of the confines of her role as a trade unionist. We welcome our guests, Elizabeth Monroe, Australian of Grenadian descent; Sharon Roberts, close family of Madonna Harford; Dr. Niels Chaitan, crime reduction specialist; Desiree Nicholas, mental health expert; and Josephine McGuire, retired broadcaster. Here now is our host, Dr. Kellon Bubb, with this week's editorial titled, Grenada, We Have a Sewage Emergency. We thank you for joining us.
A pleasant good morning to our viewers and listeners, and we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, I especially want to welcome our fans in Canada. I will be shouting out some of you as the program progresses, but those of you who heard that I was in Canada and who are actually avid viewers of the Bubb Report, you actually wanted an opportunity to see me. But I promise you that my visit to Toronto was short, but next year, I will be there for a much longer time. Now, after last week's program, following the appearance of Mr. Christopher Husbands, NAWASA's general manager, and environmentalist Hayden Redhead on the program, we received a torrent of comments on the issue of the illegal and unmitigated disposal of untreated sewer along Grenada's most environmentally sensitive waterways, bays, and inlets. Residents who live in other parts of the island chimed in. Kerry James, for example, a Facebook user said, quote, "What about Mount Hartman and Hog Island? The island almost everyone ventured to at some point in time. That place is infested with those yachts or boats that pollute the surrounding water with human waste and urine. On top of that, I myself haven't seen any toilet facilities itself on that island, which used to be beautiful at a point in time," unquote. Ian St. Bernard, a resident of Woburn in St. George, said, quote, "Yes, it's happening in Woburn Basin. The local people speak about it, but nobody does anything about it, including the authorities, unquote. Lincock, another resident of the south of the island, opined, quote, so the fact that all of the human waste from the True Blue Bay area gets dumped by the Coast Guard base into the bay has absolutely no influence on this? Really? Or the water waste from Frequente, the Maurice Bishop Highway area, Dusty Highway, and the Limes comes through a ditch straight into the bay through the boatyard that has no influence on the sewer in the bay? Not saying that the boats don't have any or have some effect, but they are not the prime and only culprits, unquote. These comments are reflective of a bigger reality. While Mr. Husbands and his team at Nawassa are treating the sewer that forms part of their catchment network, there are still tons of untreated sewer that finds itself into Grenada's wetlands because of the failure of some businesses and private homeowners to properly connect their sewer lines to Nawassa's network, which is not an enforceable requirement, interestingly. But there is a much bigger picture here, and that is the glaring lack of proper sewage infrastructure in Grenada and the Caribbean. Now, according to the wider Caribbean region facades, according to the wider Caribbean and Environmental Network, they claim that the Caribbean faces multiple challenges in the provision of wastewater and sanitation services. According to the Global Environmental Facility as well, about 70% of the region's population lacks access to safely managed sanitation facilities and adequate hygiene services. It is estimated that between 70 and 80% of domestic wastewater is discharged into the environment, partially treated or untreated. Weak policy, legislative, and regulatory frameworks, as well as the lack of financial resources to reach adequate levels of treatment, make the problem even more serious. This therefore causes severe pollution of groundwater, soils, watersheds, and ultimately the Caribbean Sea, resulting in significant environmental, economic, and social impacts. Now, Grenada draws tourists with its beautiful beaches, alluring aqua water, and vibrant marine life under its Pure Grenada branding. The discharge of untreated wastewater is at odds with this vision of a pure Grenada. Grenada's tourism industry, its tourism product, and the island's beauty are at stake here. We are therefore calling on the Ministry of Health through its Chief Environmental Officer, the Grenada Ports Authority, and the folks at the Ministry of Climate Resilience to come up with a sustainable strategy for tackling this issue. And at this point, we are happy to present our special feature of the week as the first segment of the Bubb Report. As we teed up last night, we met an Australian of Grenadian descent who has been on a decades-long quest to find her Grenadian family. Well, eventually she did, and we traveled up to Toronto to record the first part of her reunion with her long-lost Grenadian family. We now present that special feature. Elizabeth Monroe.
I began searching for my dad's side of the family back in 2003. And I had just a list of names, a list of place names. Nothing really made sense, but the names were correct.
And meet her late father, Carlton Monroe. In 2003, Elizabeth, born and raised in the coastal city of Melbourne in Eastern Australia, to a white mother from England and a black father from Grenada, began an arduous journey of finding her Grenadian family.
What was passed on to me about Grenada was, not only that it's beautiful, but it was, I think, essentially where he called home. And later on in his life, he really did yearn to go back home, but just due to ill health, he wasn't able to. There is essentially a real pull to go there and to go see what has been missing. it's from my life, essentially. But the one thing I am really looking forward to do is go to where he's from, to go to Boca, to go touch the ground, to go see the area that he lived, just to walk around and just take it in.
17 years ago, Elizabeth set out on a quest to find her father's side of the family. She says in an Instagram post that she never met another Grenadian before, and that her Caribbean network in Australia was small and limited. Elizabeth was armed with some clues from her dad, sketchy family stories, and the names of Grenadian places she could not pronounce.
So in 2015, somebody had responded to my post, and during our COVID lockdown in 2020, I came across the post. And that was my niece who had posted. So, and it all just snowballed from there.
But how did Elizabeth's father, Carlton, end up in Australia in the first place? This is where Carlton's brother, Wilford, picks up the story.
My brother, Carlton Monroe, left Grenada when I was about between 8 and 9 years old, and he went to Trinidad. From Trinidad, he left Trinidad and went to England. He wrote my mother one time in England, when we were in England, for a letter for his income tax purposes. After that, we never heard anything from him again. And that took us a long time, and we tried to reach out to him, and we could not reach to him. How we inquire about him, nobody knew nothing about him.
Eventually, Carlton's family concluded that he died in England because they never heard from him after he wrote that letter.
So me and my family come to a conclusion that probably he died in England, and nobody didn't know, because our mother died. We couldn't get in touch with him. He left. Well, we didn't know anything about him anymore. That's the bottom line. After that, one day, a young lady called me.
Before we get to that, what year did he leave Grenada to go to Trinidad and then eventually England? Do you remember? Around what period? Was it in the 60s, the 50s? Before or after Hurricane Janet?
Before Hurricane Janet.
1947.
1947. So he left Grenada around 1947.
He left Grenada around 1947 and went to Trinidad. He stayed in Trinidad for a while, and then after Trinidad he went to England. Then he corresponded with my mom from England, and she sent this letter to him, and after that we didn't hear anything about him anymore. It took us a long time.
So that letter, what year was that? Do you remember? Might have been in the 70s maybe?
Yeah, it's in the 70s.
Okay, it's in the 70s. So the last correspondence you had from your brother was in the 70s. That was the only letter he sent to your mom?
No, it wouldn't be the 70s. It's going to be in the 60s.
In the 60s?
It will be in the 60s.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What year did you?
Well, I and my sister spoke about him several times. We discussed him all the time, talking about him.
Unbeknownst to the family, Carlton, one of 10 siblings, found love in a country where mixed-race love and relationships were a social taboo. While mixed-race marriages were not illegal in the United Kingdom, people who entered into such relationships were mocked, spat upon, and abused in public spaces. This was very common for many mixed-race West Indian families in the United Kingdom and the United States. They thought your dad was deceased,
Yeah.
but your dad was in England, and he met your mom. So pick it up from there.
So from there, so my dad was in the UK. So he was working, and it was probably he was in the UK from the for the entirety of the 60s, and he met my mum in the early 70s.
Because of this, Carlton and his white British girlfriend moved to Australia. He became perhaps the first Grenadian to ever immigrate to the country when it opened its doors to non-European immigrants under the Migration Act.
In the early 70s, Australia changed their Black Australia policy, which then allowed my mum and dad, who were in a multiracial relationship, to come out to Australia. So they made the decision to come out to Australia to start their life together.
Of course, there were racial quotas there.
Yes.
At that time, tell us about that.
So I think it was 1972 or 1973 where Australia, started allowing. Well, they had a white Australia policy essentially, and so that was no longer in effect, and so that allowed my dad to come out. In the area where they lived, he was essentially the first black man that came into the area.
How was that for him? Did he talk about how was that for him? Of course, your mom being English, so they were essentially two foreigners, if you think about it.
So when they came to Australia, and bear with me because I'm telling somebody else's story here. So when they first came to Australia, so in the UK, they did experience quite a bit of racism. My mum has said that she never experienced that while she was here in Australia. Essentially you're coming into, on my dad's behalf, essentially coming into a new country where you are the minority. That's essentially ostracising. It would be very, very difficult. And he would play to his strengths with it. He could be quite a character.
Carlton and his girlfriend were eventually married, and their union produced Elizabeth. Elizabeth's quest to find her Grenadian family through her dad's stories hit several roadblocks since 2003 until the COVID lockdown in 2020, when a breakthrough was imminent.
And then about 3.5 years ago, a young lady called me looking for this gentleman by the name of Shortcut, which she said, Uncle Shortcut. And then when she told me my brother Carlton wanted to talk to me, I told her Carlton is dead. And then she said, no. And I said, yes, he's dead. And then she said, no, you want to speak to him, he's here. And when I saw the gentleman, I was afraid because I could have seen him in me, thinking that was this gentleman I'm speaking today, it was me. So I was seeing doubles. And then I really realized it's my real brother, which I love so much. I could speak to now. He's not dead anymore.
Yeah, so I actually remember the day that they spoke. That's really etched in my memory. I'd spoken to Uncle Shortcut, gotten in contact with him, and told him that my dad was actually alive. So I passed on my dad's phone number and contacted the nursing home and got them to facilitate the call. It was quite emotional. It was emotional not being able to be there to bear witness to something like that. And I was essentially feeling pretty proud of myself that, I'd reunited two brothers. And then obviously all the stories came out.
But that was very nice of you. Mm-hmm. Not only nice, but very sweet of you.
Yeah.
And applaud you. Applaud you.
But I do feel that we need to acknowledge as well, like there were so many people along the way that helped. It was, someone, did answer the post, and, it was like just a series of, turbulent, a series of activities, of phone calls, where that enabled us to be able to meet, which I think was beautiful. That was the beautiful part of it.
So when I see him, I could see myself in him. And then I had to scream to myself and say, yes, Carlton is alive. And I'm speaking to him now, which I didn't believe at all. So I was so happy to speak to him. So we spoke for a long time, and we continued to talk until he passed. And there's something he always tells me. He want to tell me, but he will tell me next time, and he never get to tell me, which I'm sorry about. But God bless his soul.
So when you had that first conversation with him, and he saw you, you saw him, what did you guys talk about? Did you say, man, we thought you were dead? Like, where were you? Like, did you ask all of those questions?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I asked him, I said, we thought you was dead. Everybody say you're dead. He didn't answer, but I said, I keep talking, and I tell him that just as though I'm talking to a dead man. No, because we consider you're gone. But anyway, we spoke, and then he started telling me about all his family in Grenada. Some of them I can't remember. But I said, this man had so much a good memory of all his family, what he could tell me and where they live. I couldn't believe. And he keep us out for all this time. Never get in contact with anyone. So if this young lady didn't let me speak to him, I would not have believed she was my niece. Because I would say, in Australia, I thought you was in England, no, you were in Australia, I don't believe you. But when I saw him, I believe everything she told me.
In July 2023, Elizabeth, in a quest to bring closure to her dad's final chapter and to finally connect with her Grenadian ancestry and culture, embarked on a journey from Australia to Grenada. By first meeting her uncle and cousins in Toronto, Canada, and Brooklyn, New York. In Toronto, Canada, I had the privilege of meeting Elizabeth and her family after speaking with her via WhatsApp for several weeks.
And here she are with me now in Canada, which I'm very, very happy to meet her, happy and proud of her, and proud of all the problems she had to find us. That make me feel more happy and more loving for her.
Yeah. So you're meeting your Grenadian family in the flesh for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to have to, after going through that process of discovery and investigating your patrilineal roots? How does it feel to be here after that long journey from Australia?
It feels really surreal. For me, my family were a series of stories. So a lot of my information all of my information was passed on to me by my dad, through the power of storytelling. Over the years, I documented the stories. Somehow, like, I've got this, it's like an innate feeling that I already know these people. Just because I've heard so many stories about them. I've known so many place names. They were common knowledge in my household growing up. So it's, it's like, finishing off the story for me and beginning my own story.
Well, I'm looking forward for you to meet the other part of the family. and which I would be happy to take her around Grenada, because I know a lot of people in Grenada. I think most of them probably passed away by now, but I know a lot of places and a lot of interesting place where I will love to take her. I can't wait to take her up where, especially where her father was born, and to show her the house where he grew up and where I grew, and to take her around the part of top Boca to show her everything and everybody. And I know that they're going to be very, very happy to meet her and me. Because where I grew up in Grenada, I do believe I was fortunate for the people to love me, because I did a lot of goodness to the people, not only in Boca, but in the whole of, like, St. George's, from River Road to Tempe, to Lamont, to Bolio, to Slocana, to Vandam, and to Boca. I do a lot of goodness for everyone. A lot of them travel with me. They don't have money, and they welcome. The conductor might be angry with them, and if you come and tell me they don't have, sometimes I took my money, put my hand in my pocket and give him the money for them, just to avoid any conflict, because I don't like it. And that's the way I am, and that's the way I grew up to today. So when we go back to Grenada, as I said before, I'll be happy to stay with them wherever they stay. And it will be on me for them. But I have to say, thank God for that.
Her story, the journey to Grenada, was ancestral and spiritual, allowing her to be in the same space that birthed her father and the Grenadian family. While in Canada, Elizabeth enjoyed trying Grenadian and Caribbean dishes for the first time.
So today's the day that I met my first Grenadian. I tried my first Grenadian cuisine. You know, and I'm looking forward to having a lot more firsts in Grenada.
Come back, Elizabeth.
I'm watching.
Yeah, so tell us, so your husband told you, Mr. Monroe told you that he had this long lost brother that was suddenly alive, like Lazarus. What was your gut reaction when you heard that?
Well, he said that he had this brother and he went off to England, and then they thought he was dead. And then Elizabeth called us and informed us that he was still alive, so we were happy. I was happy for him. We were happy.
The first time you spoke with Elizabeth, what you know in the Caribbean we say when your spirit give with somebody?
Yeah, always went with Elizabeth. For some reason, it just clicked.
Yeah. And you met her for the first time today.
For the first time today.
What was that interaction like? How did you feel?
Well, I thought I would recognize her right away as soon as she came out. I knew it was her. The smile and the warmth, we just hit it off. It was good.
Yeah. Why is family important? I think family is so important. It's the glue that holds everybody together.
That's right,
you know?
especially when you're old. That's nothing but family.
And you seem to be a family person.
That's right, you see. And there's a whole chest full of pictures of family.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, because she take so much interest in Elizabeth, which is my niece. That's the reason why, as you can see, she make all these lovely dishes. From since yesterday, she planning and make all these lovely dishes for her, which we were supposed to make a barbecue for Elizabeth to meet the other side of the family, but because of the situation with how the flight was booked, she didn't have enough time to get it done. Otherwise, we was going to introduce Elizabeth to the other family, and we're going to go invite all the other families to come and eat and drink with us. But nevertheless, the sun will shine another day
Yes.
Finish with
for it
me?
to happen.
Yes.
No, come, Elizabeth.
I have to say, my niece Gracelyn is one of the reasons we are sitting here together. When she introduced this lovely gentleman by the name of Bobby,
Kellan Bubb.
Kellan Bob,
Yes.
to come and have the interview with us from the United States to Canada. So we have to give Gracelyn, Bob, all these praises and be thankful to her for the part she take, and she is going down with us to Grenada. So she is my loving niece, which is my sister daughter.
It is. It's a really nice opportunity to be able to document this, although it's not really a traditional way of documenting finding your family, and usually these things are kept for celebrities, aren't they?
Yeah, yes.
It's very. It's a nice opportunity to have it documented, you know, for future generations of the family. I know that I like to have it for my kids as well. So the beautiful thing about it is that, you know, so much oral history now from our family has been passed on and passed around. Because this would never have come about if it wasn't for, the older generation telling stories, and speaking and passing on history, because that's really important when it comes to, us being able to acknowledge our heritage and understand where we come from as people a lot of the time.
Yeah, and the next thing I wish to say that because of her, make me get to the understanding that and remembering the part of our family, which I never knew it was our family. And it's because of her I get to realize that the people yard, which you might say, which I used to play as a boy, growing up, play marbles and spin top, because that was our recreation in those days. And they used to be very nice to me, not even knowing that this lady was my aunt. It's because, thank God for her, that make me realize that. And they passed, so I couldn't even tell them thanks for treating me so good when I was a boy. So thanks be to God for her, for all the good things she have done to us, bringing us together. So I personally, I really appreciate it, and I love it to the bottom of my heart.
Elizabeth's story reminds us that if it is important to you, you will find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse. Elizabeth did not find an excuse in this case. We thank Elizabeth and her family for sharing her epic Grenadian homecoming journey with the Bubb Report. And that was Elizabeth's story. I thoroughly enjoyed covering this story. And I want to thank Gracelyn Bubb from Boca. We are yet to determine if we are cousins. I believe we are cousins because the Bubbs in Latant, we understand the Bubbs in Latant, Birch Grove, and Boca are all interconnected. So, Gracelyn, I want to thank you. I know you're watching. I want to sincerely thank you for uh, cluing me into this and ensuring that we were able to produce this wonderful human interest story. With all of the negatives around us, this was a feel good story that was much needed. And so I want to get to some viewer comments here. Benedict is saying, I am happy for the family. Good news makes the bones fat. I love that term. Uh, Curlin Beswick is saying, man, this was emotional. Let's go on to Angela Hurley. Hello, Angela. She's in my neck of the woods here in Maryland. You're in Bowie, Maryland. Heartwarming. Thank you. Um, Onesta says, I thought that I was watching a movie channel called Lifetime, where you get the stories of family reunion, the journey from Australia to Grenada. Tessa Barry is saying, just so I want to find the family of Angelina Rodney, my paternal great grandmother, and Alice Prime, my maternal great grandmother. I'm inspired. Let's see. Glennis says she looks like a Sherma Bubb. Yes. Okay. Petrina Bubb. Hello. We may be related. We really have to do that genealogy for our own for the Bubb side of the family. Gracelyn for Gladys Bubb and Michael Bubb. Let's see. Onyx is saying we should adopt that name for him. I think you guys are referencing what what the gentleman said there. Bob. Okay. All right. Let's go on to get some other viewer comments. Um, Someone is saying, this is a common behavior for West Indian people. My husband's aunt and his mother's sister eloped and went to Venezuela. She got married there around 1958. The family never heard from her and assumed she died. About 10 years ago, the granddaughter made contact with the family in Grenada. No one really believed her until she presented pictures of her mother and other family members. Around 1959, his aunt left Venezuela and went to Colombia, Cartagena. Well, my grandparents actually have a very similar story of immigrating to Venezuela as well. Maybe one day I can share that, but that will be part of my book. So you'd have to buy the book to get that information. Cadella is saying, great work. Let's go on. Another viewer is saying, I welcome the braveness of the young woman to find her Grenadian roots, and I hope others in that position will come forward to find their roots, because Grenadians spread all over the globe and lost their contact with home, especially when they've forgotten who was left behind and never turned back to those who helped them get to the other side. These are some of the comments. Davis is saying, this is a very interesting story. We are grateful for our Grenadian Queen Elizabeth. Elizabeth, if you're watching, you've been called Grenadian Queen Elizabeth there. It's good that she was able to trace her Grenadian roots. This was smart of Carlton. The Bubb Report is opening real avenues. You call this a family ties. Her Grenadian connection is real. Brenda Lee, hello, Brenda Lee. Good morning to you. What a real life story with a fantastic ending. Indeed, a fantastic ending there. Someone else is saying, that's Landy Penny saying, my grandmother, Veronica Monroe, is from Boca. She migrated to Trinidad in the late 1950s. I believe this family is related to my family. Andrea Pascal, hello to you. You're saying, I'm from Boca. That's my mom's friend. There we go. So lots of very heartwarming comments, very inspiring comments. Uh, we have another comment here saying, Sonia is saying, very interesting. There are many more stories like this out there. And folks, if you want us to tell that story, because I am a person, I believe in genealogical history. I am very pro family history. and it's something that I will be documenting in my book, journeying my family's migration story to Venezuela, England, Colombia, especially the United Kingdom during that Windrush era. So if you have any stories like that, please reach out to the Bubb Report. We will be more than happy to document and tell your family's story as well. Let's get to some other comments. Someone is saying, I just met my cousin from a photo that she posted on Facebook with my grandfather. And that is the other thing. With these stories, what you find this with technology, that is, with the evolution of technology, social media, you now have the ability. There is a Grenada genealogical Facebook page where you now have the ability to work with some of the quick-witted researchers there who can help you with that search. You have Ancestry, you have all of these different sites now that can help you build your family tree. Gemma is saying, such a beautiful story. It was very heartwarming and emotional. Brenda Brooks, she's saying, Dr. Bubb, keep up the good work. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. And Davis is saying she should be here for Carnival to get a taste of Grenadian culture. Unfortunately, I believe Elizabeth is returning to Australia, so she may not have the opportunity to experience Grenada Carnival. But now that her foot got proverbially wet, if you will, in Grenadian culture, Elizabeth had oil down for the first time yesterday in Grenada. So perhaps Elizabeth will be returning with her son and husband and members of the other members of the Grenadian clan in Australia to experience Carnival at a date in the future. So viewers and listeners, we certainly thank you for watching this first segment of the program. We thank you for your comments. And to Elizabeth, Gracelyn, and the rest of the family, thank you all. Thank you all for certainly opening your doors to us in Canada as well, where we had the opportunity to meet Elizabeth and the rest of the Munro family there. So what we will do now, folks, we will take a quick break and we will be back for the second segment of the week. Please stand by. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bubb Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Hello everyone, I am Chantal McGuire, the local bred Grenadian actuary and asset liability management expert. Are you satisfied with your current finances? Are you curious and constantly looking for ways to make additional income? Join me on the Bubb Report as we strive to empower you, our valued audience, to become more financially literate and help evolve Grenadians into a mindset that's investment focused and entrepreneurial. Literacy is about freedom. It's about being able to control your money and not letting your money control you. It's about foresight for a brighter future. Our core mission is to promote financial literacy and share money-generating opportunities for everyone. Join us on the last Sunday of every month, starting July 30th, as we strive to provide the keys to financial freedom.
And welcome back, viewers and listeners. Before we get to the next segment, there is a Bubb Report viewer who lives in Toronto, Canada, or the greater Toronto, Ontario area, because there are several cities that surround Toronto. He is Mr. Chris Scott. Mr. Chris Scott reached out to me and said that him and his wife are avid viewers of the program. And so, Mr. Scott, and of course, Siobhan, who is also from St. David's, my sister from Latant, who is also in Canada. She watches the program. But Mr. Scott suggested that the Bubb Report should do a road show in Canada one of these days. So it's something we would think about, Mr. Scott. So to you and your wife and to all the viewers in Canada, Ryan is another viewer, a Bubb Report viewer there in Toronto. Ryan, if you're watching, hi there, buddy. Thanks for being an avid viewer of the program. We do have a fan base in Canada, and we thank all of you for watching the program. But at this point, we will segue into much more of a serious conversation, much more of a current conversation in respect of what has been happening in Grenada. And so for our panel segment, we are joined by two experts. We are joined by a crime reduction specialist and a mental health expert. Dr. Niels Chaitan is a returning guest to the Bubb Report, but he does extensive crime reduction work across the Caribbean, famously in St. Lucia, where I believe he recently received a sort of a People's Award for championing crime reduction efforts in that country. Mr. Chaitan, this is not your first time on the Bubb Report. Your sparring partner, who is a former commissioner of police in St. Lucia, he's not here today. At least we are able to get a police to come on our program, because unfortunately we cannot get law enforcement to come on the Bubb Report, Grenadian law enforcement, that is. But you were able to use your resources to get him to come on the program in the past. And we have Desiree Nicholas. Desiree, I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly. If I am not doing so, I do apologize, and I am subject to correction. You are a mental health expert, and you are the founder of Caracope Wellness Alliance. And so you will tell us more about that. And so, given the context of everything that has been happening in Grenada over the last month, really, we have assembled these two individuals here to talk about solutions, to talk about ways in which we can mitigate the impacts of crime, and in which ways in which we can actually take mental health actionable steps for taking care of our mental health. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dr. Bubb. It's good to be back on the Bubb Report.
Yes, absolutely. It's good to have you, sir. And Desiree?
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be on the program today.
Absolutely. And I wish to thank your friend Josh for putting me in touch with you, because I saw his story in respect of what you're doing. Now, as we say, the last few weeks, or I should say the last month in Grenada, has been a bit heavy. Would you agree with that assessment, lady and gentlemen?
I'll let her go first.
Ladies
Absolutely.
first. Chivalry is not
Absolutely.
dead. Ladies first. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. The last few months have been tragedy after tragedy. And I notice a lot of people are constantly asking, well, what's happening in Grenada? That's often the question that people are asking. And I think social media makes it a lot easier for us to find out what's happening. People are getting the news much faster. But some of the things that I've been seeing in respects to suicides have not necessarily been a surprise to me. I founded Caracope back in 2020 when I was in Grenada during the pandemic, and noticing that there were a series of suicides in the months prior to the pandemic
starting. And in speaking to people about it, a lot of people said to me, well, yes, we need mental health support, but we don't feel comfortable reaching out to a lot of the people that we know we can reach out to because we're afraid that people will talk about what we discuss. And people are just generally afraid of the level of confidentiality that is upheld. And I think that has become a huge issue. And this is something that CARICOP is trying to address, because confidentiality is important. It is really important.
Absolutely. Dr. Chaitan, I would bring you in. Now, in your last appearance on the Bubb Report, the former commissioner of police and yourself, you sounded a warning to Grenada. And in that warning, you said, when your neighbor's house is on fire, you should wet yours. Yes, you said that. And at the time, many people in the comment section dismissed you. They said, no, Grenada, this is Grenada. We're not St. Lucia, we're not Trinidad. This is not to say that the level of crime in Grenada or the nature of crime in Grenada is the same as Trinidad and Tobago. We are not there yet. Right. But are the chickens coming home to roost? Or are we just, shall we say, engaging in moral panic?
Well, Dr. Bubb, the thing about it is that I understand, I've heard several town hall meetings, and we are trying to make sure we do not label Grenada. We want to make sure we don't cry, because Grenada is still a very safe destination, and we don't want to be hailing gloom and doom. I understand that. But, Dr. Bubb, you cannot beat the figures, right? Last year, 22, we closed with 8 homicides. We are currently in July, mid-July, and we are up to 12, 13 already, So we don't want to cry doom and gloom, but of course the figures are showing. And that's not even taking into consideration the two suicides that we had, or alleged suicides that we had, right? So things are happening, my brother, and I just say in 2020, when I moved back to Grenada, I came back just before the pandemic. I was asked to sit on a committee of professionals where we had to build a roadmap, a psychosocial roadmap for during and beyond COVID. And my task, because of my crime specialist, was to look at, predict what could happen because of what we were seeing. And I predicted that there was going to be an incline in crime and violence and homicides. I predicted that. What I don't know is whether or not the report that we generated was nicely bound, if it was shelved or if it was put into action. I'm not sure about that. But what I'm seeing, as you said correctly, the chickens are coming home to roost right now. And
let us talk about let us talk about, of course, in social sciences, in the social sciences, in the social sciences, in social scientific research, whether that is in the context of qualitative or quantitative, we are both academicians here. We are able to predict outcomes from the data. The data are able to tell us that particular story. What in the data made you predict an upsurge in crime in the community?
Well, the truth about it, Dr. Bubb, it wasn't necessarily the data, because remember, COVID and all the psychosocial impact and trauma that went along with it was new. There was no data on that prior. I mean, the last global pandemic there was with smallpox way back, half a century ago more, right? So there was no data per se, because this was new. But what we were looking at the trauma that was being caused by the pandemic, the pain, the hurts, all the psychosocial dysfunctions, and you have to put that together now and make a prediction, make an educated guess. When we look at the roots of crime and violence, which I always look at, when we look at people being quarantined and people being locked down, and people, you have perpetrators and victims in the home together because work is closed down. you have this build up, and no place to vet. It is very easy to predict that there will be a psychosocial fallout. And using that, because as I said, there was no way we could hang on to data per se, numbers, because COVID was brand new. COVID was something different.
Yeah.
So we had to use our expertise and knowing what the roots of crime and violence could be, and say, yes, we are seeing them prevalent there, and this could cause this. And that's what we did.
So you compiled this report. Was this report presented to the Royal Grenada Police Force? Outside of the RGPF, who else did you present that data to?
Well, the truth about it is that I wasn't the lead in this. I was just part of it, right?
Okay.
It was a number of professionals from all different levels that were involved, and we had to discuss what was going on. We had to try to find ways to mitigate during the pandemic, and then have a long-term plan, which is like a roadmap for. So it was compiled. I know it was compiled. I handed my portion, which I dealt with crime and violence, and I know it was compiled. I didn't hear anything about it afterwards. I don't know if it was presented to cabinet, because I think it was asked. It may have been commissioned by cabinet. It may have been. I don't know what was done with it.
Okay.
And so.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring back Miss Nicholas here. Now, Miss Nicholas, let us first talk about the trauma that's associated with premature deaths. We saw two premature deaths by suicide, by the completion of suicide in Grenada within the last 2 weeks. What does premature death do to the human psyche mentally?
That's a really good question, Dr. Bubb. When you say, what does premature death do to the human psyche, I'm thinking about everyone who has been impacted by these losses. The family, the friends, the co-workers, the people who were mentors, right? And even people who are strangers, the news of that can be really, really triggering, because many people are suffering with depression, suffering with anxiety, dealing with mental health issues in silence. A lot of people could be already on the brink of a mental health crisis and just trying to hold on. And then you find out about these young people who allegedly lost their lives to suicide. And it is really, really disheartening. I want to just highlight the way that I'm speaking about suicide.
Yes.
You would notice that I did not say commit suicide, right? I said lost their lives to suicide. Mm-hmm. It's very important that we address the way that the language that we use to discuss suicide, because there are people who are already dealing with suicidal thoughts, already contemplating this. And then you go on and you see on the news, this person commits. The word commits, what connotation does that have to it, right? That you are a criminal, you're doing something that, it already puts you in a space where you are in the wrong and you are in the negative. So a person who's dealing with suicidal thoughts, hearing that term commit, they're already dealing with feeling like they're a burden to society, feeling like they don't belong, and feeling a whole lot of loneliness. Those are the three major things that are present oftentimes when someone completes suicide. Mm-hmm. And it's very important that we understand the mental space that people can be in, mm-hmm, so that we can be more careful about the way that we speak about things, because every minute counts when it comes to saving lives and getting someone support. Mm-hmm. And I think media can be a great way to do that.
Absolutely, and we try to be very intentional in the way that we use language. I mean, I'm an educator, and so I do understand the nuances around how we talk about suicide. Here, I want to bring in Dr. Chaitan. Is there anything else you wish to add to what
Yeah,
Ms. Nicholas said?
Dr. Bob, just wanted to pick up on your question because I think your question
Yes.
is the key question. How does
Mhm.
premature death affect the psyche of people, right?
Yes.
In the case of the two alleged suicides that happened, and we got to be careful with words, as Ms. Nicholas said, we got to be careful. So at this point, I'm still saying alleged
Yes.
suicide. Um, but of course, we had two young men in St. Patrick's that were in their 30s and 21, and that is premature also. You know what I'm saying? Inflicted though. But I want to use, to answer your question, Dr. Bob, I want to quick use an anecdote from Toronto because I lived on it for years. There was a young man in a school he was 13 years old and middle school that is, and would do nothing, would absolutely do nothing in school, wouldn't try, head is down, wouldn't talk, wouldn't answer a question, nothing. And so I was called in because I work with Toronto District School Board, and I was called in. And I went to speak to the young man, and he was there just, whoa, teacher didn't know what to do with him, and he was sitting there and like just completely docile, not engaged, not involved. And so I started talking to him. I told him a little story. I saw a smile on his face, and then I kind of advanced more to see what was the issue. And you know what the young man said to me? Sir, it doesn't make sense trying. It doesn't make sense trying. Because they killed my brother at 16. I'm going to die at 16 too. You see that? It brings, when life is terminated prematurely, it brings a level of hopelessness. I mean, let's face it, we are from a Christian society, and we believe that, the Bible says you are given 10. So everybody looking towards the 70s, everybody looking towards retirement. And when you die at 21, when you die at 29, when you die at 30, it sends a strong message. People say, oh my gosh, there is no hope. We start looking at everything around us as a possible weight or a possible thing that will take our lives. And so it really damages the psyche of people, it put them in hopelessness, it causes them not to want to try. And by the way, when we hear gun violence and we hear suicide, then I hate using that term, Dr. Bo, because it's not a psychological term, but we use it widely. And we say, oh, it's a copycat syndrome. It's a copycat, right?
Mhm.
It makes people sound as though, well, they thought less, just copying, right? But really and truly, what really it is, as we hear about it more and more, it presents another option. Or, I was thinking about this, but you know what? Hey, I was scared to do this, but it's been done. Or it's been done successfully. And, probably that's an option for me. So I don't like using the word copycat at all, but it really kind of normalizes it. And that's something we don't want to do at all.
Yeah. I want Desiree to pick up on that because I saw you nodding when Dr. Chaitan referenced this popular culture vacuous expression, really. That's what it is, the copycat syndrome, as if, and what people fail to realize is that when you suffer in silence, you suffer in silence for a long time. Yes? Desiree, so I want you to pick up on debunking the notion of this copycat syndrome.
Absolutely. I do agree with Dr. Chaitan about that. I think we need to find a new term to describe this phenomenon, because what is happening is people are already dealing with mental health issues. So like you said, when they see certain things that are triggering, when they see someone follow through on something, it becomes an option for them. And so this is why the copycat thing was termed, because over the years, studies have shown that suicide happens in waves. And so people are shocked to see so many people dying like this in a country that's only 110,000 people. Two in the last 2 weeks is too many.
That's a lot.
It's too many. And it's really important that we understand it does happen in waves. It is not out of the ordinary for it to happen in waves, because a lot of people are struggling silently. And so the simple news of that could be the thing that pushes someone over the threshold. And this is why I'm an advocate for getting the media to understand how to report on this. If they're going to report on it, how to report on this. Because it's
assuming that some elements of the media are willing to learn and listen, but I digress. Please proceed.
yes, exactly. It's our responsibility to report on this in a very sensitive way.
Yes.
I understand that the media likes to be transparent, and we appreciate transparency. However, there are certain situations where we do not need to know all the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if it's a situation where a body was found and it's still under investigation, okay, a body was found, and we can let you know what the details are later. But when the details do come out, if it is suicide, it is important not to ever in the media mention the means that was used. Because who does it benefit to find out the means that the person used? Who does it benefit? If you are not a physician, if you are not a forensics expert, you're not investigating the matter. If you're not a close family member who's trying to come to terms with what really happened and accept what really happened, then it does not benefit you to know the means that the person used. All it does is give further increase and further options to people who are already contemplating suicide. And I think it's very important that I hope this interview gets seen by a lot of media persons, because we need to stop telling all the gory details of suicide. What really matters is that a precious life was lost.
Mm-hmm. You know, in journalism, and I teach my students this, because that is the basis of my education, is that we have to do no harm. Yes? And the media has a responsibility as well to do no harm. Doing no harm includes not plastering images of deceased people that are found in particular locations. Doing no harm is not encouraging the rumors and innuendo. That's also doing no harm. There is a lot that we need to do in the interest of while reporting what you're supposed to be reporting, but there is also that very foundational ethical principle of doing no harm. Dr. Chaitan, I want to turn to you here. Now, you've worked extensively in St. Lucia. I believe you've worked in Anguilla. You've worked in other parts of the Caribbean. I believe you worked in St. Kitts as well. Now, while Grenada has not passed, the homicide rate has not passed the data for 2022, although it is inching closer to that number. It is certainly higher at this point this year than it was last year. Are you noticing a pattern here in terms of the types of crimes being committed that is similar or dissimilar to our islands in the OECS? And I want to use our islands in the OECS as the baseline, as opposed to the anomalies of Jamaica and Trinidad, where the socioeconomic dynamics are totally different.
The truth about it, in the two islands I've spent the longest in, and that would be St. Kitts and Nevis and St. Lucia, it's a lot of gang and gun related. Mm-hmm. Gang and gun related. In Grenada here, we see a lot of weapons too, but more knives, more stabbings, and what have you. I mean, Dr. Bubb, if I show you a picture of weapons that we have taken as interventionists from high school students, it will blow your mind. They make their own long, they call them jukas. You know, they got their own jukas long with a bamboo handle, and we have to intercept them and take them from. So the gun related, I'm hearing about bullets flying here and there sometimes. But in Grenada, what I'm seeing is more the use of the machete, the cutlass, the knife, or what have you. So it's more kind of bodily injury with knives and jokers and what have you. In St. Lucia, as anybody would tell you who worked there, it's a lot of gang activity. I worked in the Viewport area, which was one of the areas that was the most concerning. In 2 weeks' time, we had 13 homicides there. And it was gang against gang, it was gang related. As a matter of fact, there was one main street, and there was one gang on one side and another gang on the other side. And they were shooting at each other right across the street. Now, for a while, we haven't seen it in Grenada. But what I'm hearing now, Dr. Bubb, and I'm only hearing that through the grapevine as I go around, because I go to funerals to support the victims and what have you and be there with the family. I'm hearing now that there are communities in Grenada where they're feuding within close proximity, especially in the north of the island, right? Mm-hmm. I'm hearing in St. Patrick's, you have communities that are feuding, and to say it in Grenadian vernacular, people are walking with the cutlasses. Some people, I was in a funeral on Friday in St. Patrick's, and whenever I'm in the crowd, my ear is on the ground listening. And one man said, for Carnival, man, there's gonna be some real bloodshed. We gotta have AK-47s out there. And I said to him, wow, man, is that the best prediction you can make? You say, well, sir, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I'm hearing that this kind of a feuding community, this kind of a rival community dynamics is coming back. And we got to be very, very careful with that. We got to, as my statement is always, or my term is, we got to nip it in the bud. Don't let it get out of hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What about, yes.
Let me say something.
Go ahead.
Let me just make a comment here, because I got to be very careful, tongue in cheek, when I say this. But our law enforcement throughout the Caribbean, and recently there was a meeting in Trinidad and Tobago with the commissioner of police in the OCS, and they were saying our guns and our weaponry is not enough to combat this. Because, Dr. Bubb, let me tell you something. These guys are bigger weapons out there. Bigger weapons. Not only that, guys that are really out into the gang mentality, they don't really care. Our police officers have families and children, and they care about their lives. These guys out there, right? And so it is important that we use another strategy. If we go kicking in doors, if we go up against, and I'm telling our police officers, you go up against them, it's going to be an exchange of fire. We got to get to the heart, Dr. Bubb. And I know it so well. That's the way we want it everywhere. We walk into the communities fearlessly, very confident, and we talk to the head of these gangs. And Dr. Bubb, it's amazing the impact.
What about targeted killings? Are targeted killings something we see in our neck of the woods?
Targeted killings, and that's what we're scared about, because targeted killings is really what revenge, reprisal. You know what I'm saying? It's unlike what just happened in St. Lucia. You probably heard that during the carnival in St. Lucia in January, for example. Two young ladies and a young man was killed at drive-by. Somebody just dropped the glass and indiscriminately shot. The girls were not a target, they were shot, right? In Grenada, what we are scared about is that the pain. When I went to the funeral, Dr. Bubb, in Sanchez, in Riverside, and heard the pain that, of young men that lost a friend, it is very easy if we don't go quickly and nip it in the bud. What can happen is that we could have a cycle of vigilante justice, right? If we don't give them justice, if we don't give them closure, if we cannot solve the case, if we cannot, and by the way, as I'm saying that, I'm also appealing to the public, because if you want the police to solve the case and you don't say anything, how would they do that, right? So I think what I'm worried about in terms of targeted shooting or targeting killing, would be revenge, more revenge kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And let me bring back Desiree here. Now, again, And some viewers are asking, can we discuss Sharice Thomas, or can we discuss destigmatization of mental health issues on the island? This is a conversation, Sharice, that we have always had on the Bubb Report, and that's something that Brenda Lee, in fact, highlighted. Brenda Lee, thank you for highlighting that, because you say, again, as a mental health professional, I commend you for your contributions to mental health issues here in Grenada. This is real, and it's not as a respect of people. So we have had several episodes. We've had probably, I would say, more than 7 episodes in which Brenda Lee was, in fact, a panelist on the program. As recent as a couple months ago when you were here, Dr. Chaitan, the mental health conversation also came up. There's also a young lady, Seville Francis, who is here, who is commenting. She also appeared on the program, but it is
By the way, Brendan is one of my colleagues. Good,
yes,
good person.
absolutely. So this is a conversation that we have always had on the Bubb Report, but we are recommitting ourselves and redoubling our efforts to continue those conversations. So, Ms. Thomas, Sharice Thomas, thank you for that. And Desiree, I want to get back to you here because, again, we are going to talk about solutions. And again, we'll talk about solutions in the context of the work that you do as well, Dr. Chaitan, as a crime reduction specialist. Now, you have a workshop coming up on mental health intervention. Can you talk to us about that particular workshop and the role that citizens can play? Citizens who have very deep personal relationships with friends, people that they can trust, in being mental health first aid responders for friends and family.
Thank you, Dr.
That's Ms. Nicholas, and then we'll get back to you, Dr. Chaitan.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Bubb. So yes, we need to talk solutions. One of the things we have to admit as Grenadian people is that generally we are not that willing to seek counseling and therapy. And there have been good reason for that because sometimes there are confidentiality issues that come up, right? The island is also small, so sometimes you want to have a level of distance from your therapist. You don't want to feel like your therapist is someone that you really know. It might feel strange to open up like that. You don't want to see that person on the street. It can make you feel uncomfortable. People have a lot of reasons why they don't necessarily want to go to therapy. We have to come up with solutions that address this by meeting people where they are. So the workshop is really about helping people to empower themselves and teaching people how to cope, right? So this workshop is for anyone. If you are a mental health professional, if you are a mentor in anywhere, if you're a teacher, if you are a person who is simply supporting a family member or loved one who is dealing with depression or dealing with suicidal thoughts, if you yourself are struggling, in this workshop, it's happening tomorrow night at 8 p.m. If you go to Carrico Wellness Alliance Facebook page, you will find the sign-up link. Please sign up for the workshop. So far, we have over 100 people who have signed up. Those numbers to me are big because we've been doing pro bono work in the Caribbean for almost 2 years now. And this is the most attention I've seen people show to what's really going on. And it means that people really need the support right now. And so I'm urging everyone to register. We are planning on adding a second workshop next Monday, but we are starting tomorrow night and we want to help people to learn how to cope and learn how to safety plan, right? And so that is all about recognizing what can I do? How can I recognize the warning signs in someone else or in myself? What are the series of steps I need to go through to keep myself safe, right? And to keep other people safe. That is the idea. If we can put knowledge in people's hands, it does not necessarily have to start with you going to a therapist. This can be the thing that might make you feel comfortable, recognizing the value that there is in paying attention to your mental health and nourishing your mental wellness. We go to the doctor for preventative care. We need to really stop looking at mental health support as something that is for crazy people. That's not the case. Everyone can benefit from a mental tune-up. I like to use the word mental immune system, right? What are you doing for your mental immune system? Ask yourself that question. And if you feel like you can do more in light of living in a time that it seems like we're on the brink of a recession, dealing with these recent tragedies in the country, it all becomes too much. It all becomes too much. And there's just one thing that I wanted to comment on in regards to what Dr. Chaiton was saying. You know, when there's a lot of economic issues, when there's poverty, crime does increase. That's what the data shows. And so we must pay attention to that. And if you notice, it's violence against self and violence against others that comes up, right? And it's not just economic issues that would cause that, but it compounds it, right? It compounds it. So we really, really have to, as a community, come together. And I really want to urge the Ministry of Health, I want to urge the Ministry of Social Development to think about community initiatives that can address the mental health needs that exist, make it easy for people to want to address it by going into the community rather than asking people to call. Because we've been in existence since 2020, and I can only count on my finger the amount of people who have reached out from Grenada for support. We're just not there yet as a people, and we're working on getting this idea of mental wellness destigmatized. And so this is just one step to doing that. Thank you, Dr. Bubb.
Absolutely. And we've posted the image here with the Zoom link. So if folks want to take a picture of that, we would also post that in the comment section. I believe someone from your alliance also posted the registration link for the webinar that you are having this Monday, July 17th at 8 p.m. And you made a very important point there that I want to pick up on about going to a therapist. And that's something we have to destigmatize as well. You go to your pastor, your priest, your imam, your reverend for spiritual help. Yes? For those of you who are people of faith. And you should also go to your doctor if you know you go to like the bone specialist if your foot broke. Yes. And you go to your mental health specialist if for mental health challenges. I would be vulnerable here to say that I visited my therapist several times in the last couple of weeks in the wake of John T. Robinson's murder in Grenada, because that was a traumatizing experience for me. I never knew what that trauma was until that happened. When people say that, you know, that trauma that they experienced from that, I felt that. And I could only imagine what parents are feeling, parents who have to bury their children, and that mental health angst that they're feeling, you know. And so, Dr. Chaiton, I want to continue with you here, sir. Crime reduction. Talk about, I believe at the town hall in Canada, someone suggested that you be drafted by the government of Grenada. Someone drafted you there. But it's work that you've been doing irrespective of which government is in office. So, you know, you've been on the ground, if you will. Talk about how you intend to support crime reduction activities in Grenada.
But Dr. Bob, I tell you what, for over the last 18 years, I've been coming back to Grenada almost once or two times a year. Things happen in Grenada, and they asked me to come, I would come. Get a sponsor and come. I remember Caribbean Airline sponsored me one time. Digicel sponsored me one time. There were 2 homicides on the compound of the Happy Hill Secondary School. I came from it. When the little girl Ariel Bowler, I came. Whenever there's an issue in Grenada, I'm here. I was in St. Kitts, of course, on a contract, a 3-year contract. And dealing with homicides. And of course, Dr. Bob, I didn't say it. I'd probably be a lot more humble than, but he was a prime minister, the then prime minister, that proclaimed that there was a 71% drop in homicide after 3 years that was sustained for another 4 years. So after that, I was asked, I came back to Grenada and I was asked if I would consider coming back. And I said, yes, I would. So when I finished the contract in St. Kitts, instead of going back to Canada where my children and grandchildren are, where I've lived for decades, I decided to come back to Grenada. I brought a proposal in. Unfortunately, the proposal wasn't looked at. And but what I have been doing, I've been working across the nation. All during the COVID time, my brother, I've been running the streets, dealing with all kinds of psychosocial issues, crime, violence, and everything. So I've been going at it and still going at it. Right now, I'm still not yet on the contract. It's a new government, but that won't stop me from getting involved, from listening, from trying to help. In line, apparently, there's an old cliche that great minds think alike. And Miss Nicholas, I think her name, Mr. Nicholas.
Yes.
I heard your promotion for tomorrow, which is Monday the 17th, and we also have something in the media, because I am doing something on mental health tomorrow at Counseling Hotel, and we have a lot of people coming out. It's captioned "sad, frustrated, depressed, and suicidal," where we look at definitions, where we look at the neuroscience behind it. We look at what really it is. Red flags, how to realize that something is happening here with your colleague, with your husband, with your child, and with your neighbor, and be able to, and how to intercept before it's too late. Because we've been getting calls, as probably you've been getting, but every time we get a call, we gotta say, "Oh my gosh, it's too late, it's too late." You get a call after the fact. And so what's happening tomorrow in Ponce Hotel, Dr. Business, we are bringing, I'm hearing we may not have space to do, because it's going to be a physical meeting where we'll actually go in and talk about it. And so great minds, they say great minds think alike. And so I'm glad to be in your company, Nicholas. I'm glad to do that.
And I will make sure that both of you get connected after the show. So I will ensure that your information can be exchanged, so that we can network there. Let us get to some viewer comments in the context of this segment here. Anastasia is saying, thank you, Dr. Bubb. Mental health wellness is very important, and sometimes we do have to reach out for help if needed. Absolutely. Reach out for help, especially with people who we can trust. I think that is very important. That's very important. After one of the incidents happened, you saw all of these, check up on this person's post. But, some of these people that were posting are some of the biggest gossipers and hypocrites I know. I would not go there. Tessa Barry saying there is a support group for parents dealing with children who are going through mental health issues. No, she's asking. The question is there a support group for parents dealing with children who are going through mental health issues? Parents sometimes feel helpless. Perhaps Seville or Brenda Lee can answer that, or maybe Desiree, you can take a stab at that one.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because it is something that is really important. Parents, when you have to support someone else outside of yourself, that is a lot. It's a lot on a person. And I think if we can do something to support parents, we will. So I'll definitely get back to my team and see what we can do about that. So thank you for sharing that comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just we do have a cadre of mental health experts within our ministries. We also have to acknowledge that they are there. I'm talking about people like Brenda Lee, who does amazing work there. I'm talking about Mr. Pear. I'm also talking about, her name is escaping me now, and she is going to she's going to kill me. She taught at the PBC. Please, somebody help me with her name. But she's also a mental health expert. I believe all of them are attached to the state mechanism within the context of social services, they provide support there as well. So perhaps, Brenda Lee, if you can provide those state resources on the page, that would be good. Let us get to some other comments. Let's see here in relation to this. Let's see. Yes, and another person saying a helpline for people and more counselors in our various communities might help. We need to destigmatize mental illness and getting treatment. Yes. Let us get to. There was another comment here that caught my attention, and I want to get to it as well because I believe that was a very important by Mr. Cox. Hello, Mr. Cox. Can there be an anonymous hotline established? Maybe it might help to overcome the stigmas. I'm not too sure. I could be subject to correction, but I'm not too sure if there is. If there is not, why? But if there is, perhaps we should talk about it more in respect of anonymous mental health hotline. Mr. Joseph, Davis Joseph, that's the question for you, Dr. Chaitin, I believe. He's saying, from a statistical point of view, are experts able to trace what could have triggered that upsurge in violence and suicide? However, there were years in the past when we had similar situations, an increase in violence among youths. Let's not forget the years when we had gangs like the Ginger Crew, Bloods and Crips. I do remember that. It gave St. David's a particular reputation. I incidentally covered that as well as a young reporter. After years, those gangs diminishes, but not without the input of the police and social partners. And it was learned that gangs were formed to get attention. But I think we lost the rest of it. But can Dr. Chaitin, can you pick up on that, please?
Yeah, I know that existed at one time because I came back here maybe about 208, around 207, 208, and I was asked to work in the Grenadian Valley. And there was, a matter of fact, there was a YouTube video that was captioned "Last Night in the Valley," and where guys were brandishing cutlasses and weapons and what have you. That was 2008 really, and I came back here and I did some work because Dr. Bob, my strength is curbside engagement, going to the community. I don't ask guys to come to meet me, I go meet them. And I did some significant work in Grenadian Valley. And you know, Dr. Bob, I left and I went back to Canada. And now I'm back in Grenada. Listen to this anecdote. A young man, I live in Montgelou, and a young man who I didn't know who he was my neighbor. And I did his girlfriend a favor by giving her a jump start in her car. And she told him that this gentleman helped her. And so he wanted to know who it was. And he came and said hi to me. And Dr. Bob, when he saw the sign on my car that said Project Stop and Think, he said, "Mr. Chaitin, is that you?" I said, "It's me." I said, "Well, when do you know me?" He said, "Mr. Chaitin, do you know you are the man who broke the gang in the valley?" I said, "Oh, don't say that. Don't tell people that. I know nothing about that." He said to me, "You came and you spoke for 1 week in the valley, and you challenged us. You left all your material." Dr. Bob, I had tons. I brought this poster, "Always Stop and Think Before You Proceed." I brought tons of them. I gave them in the valley. I gave the book. There is a published manual too. And I gave it out to these people in the valley. Don't know what happened. You know what the guy said to me? We took the material and we went door to door telling people. Dr. Bob, it was news to me. I was almost at tears because I didn't know the impact was like that. But I know it happened. It used to happen. I give all the praise to the RGPF because RGPF had their way of dismantling the gangs, and they did a fantastic job. But what I'm worried now is that what I'm seeing north of the island and what I'm hearing is that there's an upsurge now in rival communities. And if we don't look carefully, we don't nip it in the bud, we could have a resurgence of that kind of stuff happening there.
Absolutely. And which goes to Dr. Tessa Sincere, it's good to have you here on the Bubb Report, commenting that we continue to take reactive approaches to mental health. Both preventative and reactive ones are needed. I'm sure Desiree, Dr. Chaitan would agree with that. Of course, Brenda Lee, yes. Akeem Lewis is saying, this morning I saw on GIS 3 hotline numbers. The public can reach out for help to in mental illness. I will make a commitment to post that information on the Bubb Reports page as well, because I think that is important for the national community to access. And yes, Shauna Cuffey, yes, Ms. James and Aisha. Shauna Cuffey, I apologize for, I drew a blank on your name, sorry, live streaming. Shauna Cuffey is also an advocate in the vineyard for addressing mental health issues in the country. Let's see. Brenda Lee provided some comments here. She said the MOE has all trained counselors up to master's degree with some licenses. And she also says Grenchap also provides services, the legal aid and counseling clinic, counseling unit in private practice, herself and Mr. Edwin Felix. So there are resources there. Please use those resources. Be vulnerable. Notwithstanding those cultural dynamics that we speak about, Dr. Chaitan is here, Desiree, Miss Nicholas is here. There are people who are willing. Seville Francis is here, another advocate in the vineyard. And let's get to some other comments.
Dr.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Chaitan. Go ahead, sir. Yes.
I know Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson is on Brenda Lee Johnson, and that's something we discussed before.
Yes.
And I heard the issue about confidentiality. I would imagine, I know in my practice, my intake, and I shared that with Ms. Johnson before, on my intake form, there is a confidentiality clause that must be signed, right? And you could hold your therapist, you could hold them accountable, because you got to sign that confidentiality clause. And if the professional breaks that clause, the person could be liable. So I would hope that all the outfits here in Grenada would have some kind of a confidentiality clause in the documentation, which when signed holds the professional accountable for the confidentiality of the client's information.
Absolutely, and Ms. Nicholas, that is something you are aware of in your line of work.
Yes,
but confidentiality is something that we are challenged with in our small island. Go ahead. Yes, Ms.
I wanted to add the Sweetwater Foundation. I didn't hear anyone mention it. The Sweetwater Foundation has had a hotline in existence for quite a while. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but if you go to cargowellness.org and you go to emergency resources by country, you'll find a list of emergency resources based on the country that you're in. And what I would say is, regardless of where you're listening from, please send us about different emergency. Please send us an email letting us know about different emergency and suicide prevention hotlines that are available in the country, so that we can update that list on an ongoing basis, because quite a few people from different countries frequent our website, and it would be helpful if more of this information was available at our fingertips.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we are quickly running out of time, and we need to get to my good friend Sharon Roberts, a good friend of my mentor, the late great George Grant. Sharon, we can't see you yet, so if you can turn your camera on as we tee up your segment. But is there anything else in my line of questioning that you felt I missed that you need to address? I want to begin with you, Ms. Nicholas, in closing.
Yes. What I want to add in regards to the stigma, I have to say that the stigma around mental health still exists, and it's a yes and no. Yes, it still exists, but no, I do believe it is going away. The reason being, we're having this conversation on social media, where this is where most people are spending their time. And I want to urge everyone to please think about following a mental health page on your social media. Think about the kind of content that you want to see. Think about the kind of upliftment that you need to see every day, because social media can be a place that can leave people feeling very depressed, because people will be convinced that everyone else is doing better than them, and everyone is living this happy life, when that is what we choose to share. A lot of us are not sharing our struggles, and that leads to more feelings of loneliness. So let's destigmatize it by following more mental wellness pages. I know of Joel Frederick, who has been posting a lot of resources online for Grenadians, and she has a lot of followers. So these are the people that we have to continue to promote to help more people be accessed. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Dr. Chaitan?
Yeah. As we close here, Dr. Bob, I want to make a call out there for our young men. Dr. Bob, I've done some work with the MOE, Ministry of Education, and what I've seen is it's a downward spiral. When our boys don't do well in school, and there's a high dropout rate of our boys in school, what happens is they have nowhere to go. And I think you probably saw my last article talking about NULO that given second chance opportunity. But when our boys are frustrated and they have nothing to do, they will get it. Boys are adventurous, and they would want to get into some kind of a thing. It's important that we take care of our young men. Dr. Bob, the prison is filled with men, not women, not women. Our boys are dying to the guns, to the knives. And unfortunately, we lost two beautiful ladies. That is not very. I mean, there was a study done by RGPF between 2015 to 2020. There were 27 suicides in Grenada. 22 were men. It's on the police website. You can find that, right? So why, I just saw two ladies and I said, oh my gosh, what's happening here? But you know what? We need to take care of each other. We need to look out for each other. We need to look out for our neighbors. Let's stop this competition thing, man, and let's genuinely care about people. We might just be able to save a life. God bless you guys.
We might just be able to save a life. And I think on that note, Dr. Chaitan and Ms. Nicholas, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report. This was a very, very important conversation to have. You know, sometimes social media and everything is just filled with so much negative things, but out of this conversation, I felt as if we were able to identify resources that people can access should they need that help. Definitely, thank you all for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
Thank you. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you, Dr.
Absolutely.
Bob.
And viewers, for our final segment, we are going to continue to pay tribute to a friend of the show, Sister Madonna Harford, who sadly transitioned last week. And so we are going to tee up a conversation we had with Josephine Maguire before bringing in her cousin, Sharon Roberts, who is here to remember her dear cousin, her dearly departed cousin, Sister Madonna Harford. Please stand by.
Well, thank you, Callum, for giving me the opportunity to speak about my dear, dear, dear friend, Mado. That's how I called her, and I will continue to call her so. Yes, we entered the Anglican High School the same year. We were both in the same form, 1B. And, well, okay, just to start from the beginning. Now, Mado came a little after, maybe about a month after school started. And so she came from Petit Martinique. And you know, Grenada in those days. So you come from Petit Martinique, you will be teased. You come from the country, you will be teased, and so on and so on. So she came a little late, and she was a little bit on the skinny side, tall and skinny. So she was not at first sight the person that you would want to befriend. But my dear, that quickly changed. I tell you, we had a concert And that lady put on that song. Well, girl in those days, but she put on that song. You know that song, and just out of reach of my two empty arms, that kind of country and western song. Oh my God, I tell you, the room was quiet. That girl had a singing voice, yeah? And then, and then we got to realize that she was, just a very charming soul, very nice person, very bright. She would get nothing wrong. Very bright and but very charming. But, going back to the little teasing days, I could tell you, she had a temper. Yeah, she had a temper. She can be the nicest person on the earth, but don't look for the bad-tempered side of her. Yes, you don't want to know that side. So we stayed in Anglican High School through all the years. And then we parted ways after graduation, and everybody had to look for a life. So we parted ways. But I must say one thing with us from Anglican High School. Even though we don't see each other every day, we remained permanently connected. And I must tell you, permanently connected. So in those photos, you would see us together, different ages, different forms we were, but the one thing in common, AHS. And we celebrated Miss Bethany, Trish Bethany, in February. I mean, you can see Madonna there, full of life and everything, right? And then my last conversation with her was in April when I visited her at her home, and we really had a nice girl talk. We spoke about all kinds of things, life and this and that, and really girl talk. And then she introduced me to her granddaughter, who she said is a good swimmer, and her daughter, and and was there, and yeah, it was so nice. I think I got 2 mangoes from a tree too. And it was then that she said she was going up in June to get tests done. Wow. You never know, when it will be the last. You just never know. But my last visit was in April with her. And as I tell you, we really had a lovely, lovely chat sitting in her sitting room, and she spoke about the tiles. She was so full of life that she told me, Jojo, if you had reached here, no, she doesn't, she never called me Jojo. We were so close that my relatives called me Finn. And so she got to be calling me Finn too. And she said, if you had only reached here half an hour before, you wouldn't think that is your girl, Mado. I was so dirty. I was down on the floor scrubbing the tiles because she had a change of tiles, and you know how dusty that can be. And she said, I was there cleaning my tiles. That's how full of life she was in April when we were at her home. Yeah? Oh my God. But you never know when it will be the last. You never know. But that last visit was so full of cheer and, and everything, that it will be a long-lasting image for me, and it will be forever in my memory. My last chat with her in April, the last little line we had at her home. And I intend to follow up, as I know she would like me to, follow up on her granddaughter, who is such a good swimmer. I intend to follow up on you, my dear. All right, so thank you, Kellon. That's as much as I can tell you at this time, because as you know, you would realize that it's hard for me, and there are some memories I don't want to go back to. So let's leave it there. Yes, and thank you again.
That was retired broadcaster and one of my early mentors in radio. In fact, when I just got my first, it was not even a job, it was actually just an experience at GBN with the Young Ones program. Back then, Josephine Maguire was one of those people who took me under her wings. And I pay respect to people like her because I stand on her shoulder. I stand on her shoulder and the shoulder of people like the late George Grant as well. But Sharon, speaking of George Grant, Sharon, welcome to the Bubb Report. We have to get you in a regular rotation here. You and Margaret. I know Margaret doesn't like to talk, but we definitely have to have um, a Chimers reunion. I think George Grant would be happy about that. But Sharon, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the last time you were here also on the sad and tragic circumstances in the untimely and premature death of your friend George Grant, my mentor George Grant, and sadly you're here again. I didn't even know you were related to Sister Madonna Harford. So, talk to us about Madonna Harford, the person, the family woman, the mother, the daughter of P.T. Martinique, the proud daughter of P.T. Martinique,
Yes.
who blazed the trail in Grenada. Talk to us about her early days growing up, and your early days growing up on the island of P.T. Martinique before journeying to Grenada.
Wow, that's a way back because I just celebrated 68 years. And Madonna and myself go way back to those days where we went to Pittermartinic Primary School.
Mhm.
Some people know it as Thomas Aquinas RC School. And we moved to Grenada just about, I think I moved maybe a year or two before her because, we come from very big families. And when we had to be paying boarding for my first half of the family was moved to Grenada in 1965. And Madonna joined us not too long after, and she lived our father's cousins,
Mhm.
and she moved in with my mother's sister. So my cousin Tony became her brother, and we were all in Montparnasse. In those days, we didn't have buses, eh? So we had to walk from Montparnasse to down to town. She would go down the lane to the Anglican High School, and we journeyed down Lucas Street to convent. And there were two other girls who we called them the three M's. There was Madonna, there was Maria Palmer, and Marilyn Steele. And you could not separate those three. So they got the nickname the three M's. And it is a beautiful thing to see that you grow from childhood to adulthood, became mothers and grandmothers, and the friendship remained up to today. And Madonna has three brothers and four sisters who still reside in Carriacou and Pitamatic, and a number of nieces and nephews and grandnieces. And she was so loved because, some people on looking at Madonna at first would think she's unapproachable, but she was one of the most loving people you would ever encounter. And
Yeah.
one of the things she always said, and we spoke not every day, but when we got on the phone, if you had your pot on fire, you had to turn it off because we'd be on the phone for like 2, 3 hours. And one of the things that consoles me is that the day before she left for Germany, the night before, we were on the phone for like 2 hours. And we both have had challenges with cancer, and thank God I have been in remission now for over 10 years. And it I thought we had plans that when she get back to Grenada, we go into yoga, we go in and do chair yoga for old people, because we were laughing at the fact that we are now the old generation. We are now the ones with grandchildren, and she teasingly talk about girl, can you imagine we live to be old people? We used to think that 60 was old. I remember telling a girl, when my mother turned 60, I started to pray extra for God to give a long life. And now we are like 68, 67. and told her that one of my brothers say, "Oh, all you could get only for all you want, but he is forever young." And we laughed and we talked, and one of the things she always said is, "Be thankful for today, because in a flash of the moment, your whole life could change." And that is so true. And it is so important to tell the people who you love that you love them. Don't say, "Oh, my children know I love them." Tell them that you love them. Because when you're gone, that is the memory they would have,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that you shared that love. And it's, when you have a falling out with somebody, jump past that, because you love them. Forget all the negative and come together.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell you, I know that come the 27th of July, when would be her funeral at the cathedral, I guarantee you it would be standing room only.
Mm-hmm.
Because Madonna was more than just a family person. She touched the whole Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure most of you know that in, I think it was November 2018, she was given the title of MBE. She's a member of the British Empire. Madonna has made her mark on Grenada, not just as family. And Peter Martinique is extremely proud to call her daughter. So in the public sector, I did a program years ago when Paul Roberts just started Spice Capital Radio. I remember I was tasked to do a program with women, and one of the first women on the program was Madonna. And we called it Women of Substance. So it's interesting to hear them talking about women of substance now. And she was one of the first people, because that was the first couple. Madonna and her late husband were the first
Basil. Yeah.
couple, yeah, Basil, to be permanent secretaries, you know? So we did a program and I remember she was so humbled, because she said, "Imagine that you come in and ask me to do a program." I said, "Girl, you know that you're in high standing. People admire you." And
Yeah.
she was in the bracket with people like Joan Purcell and Margaret Nichols, were two of the other women we did on that program, Women of Substance. And Madonna was a humble person, and she did more than you would ever imagine. I'm sure that in the days to come, you would hear more people talking about how Madonna touched their
Hmm.
lives.
I can speak of my personal relationship with her even as a young reporter in Grenada, and that's one of the things with me. I am never afraid or ashamed to learn and ask questions. And I remember there was a particular labor dispute in the early 2000s. She was still permanent secretary, part of the government negotiating team, and I remember going to her and said, "Could you educate me on this?" On what the GNT does here, what does arbitration, what does that look like, and all of these things. What's the difference between arbitration and mediation? And she said, "Young man, I'm busy, but come to the office. Let me explain those things to you." She said, "You seem to want to learn." And fast forward to many years later, even when I was leaving Grenada to pursue higher education, she encouraged me. She encouraged me. She said, "I'm really proud of what you're going to be doing, but please," she said, "please, whatever you do, give a little something to Grenada back." And so when the Bubb Report started following George Grant's passing, Madonna was one of the first people that reached out to me and said, "If you need any advice in respect of issues around labor relations, please reach out." In fact, I wanted to have on the program, but she said no, just call me, because Basil was alive at the time. Basil has some challenges, and I have some health challenges, which she confided in me. She was vulnerable with that. But she said, "I will give you advice and tell you how to approach these types of subjects." So that is the type of person I remember her to be. She was always willing. She was not one of those people who was selfish with knowledge. And that's something I really, really appreciated about her.
one of her pet peeves, I remember us on the phone for ages
Yeah.
talking about where did this new thing come about persons? Like people forget
Yes.
the word people, and all of a sudden everything is persons, persons, and would have. Instead of saying, I did this, I would have. And we'd be on the phone for hours. And I remember she saying, I told her, I said, but as my mother used to say, common sense ain't so common. But Madonna used to say, common sense is like a flower that doesn't grow in everybody's garden. And I liked that because it's when you say common sense, not so common, it sounds as if you're striking the person on the head. But when you say it's like a flower, it's gentler, you know? And that was Madonna. And she was so proud of her children and her grandchildren. And we
Yes.
turned so proud of her. And
Absolutely.
and I want to put it on record that I'm so proud of you
Thank
because
you.
I remember you as a young reporter. I remember the day Fidel Castro came to Grenada and we were there together with the late Leslie Pierre. And I admire what you have become. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you for that. I'm a bit emotional thinking about all of that.
Yeah. So am I. Because Madonna is, I mean, it was so hard 2 days ago when her adopted brother, who is actually my first cousin, Tony, we sat down to write the obituary and we were both in tears. And it is so hard because Madonna was more than just a cousin. She was a friend.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was a friend. She was a mother, a nurturer, an advisor, somebody that you can go to in spite of all of the challenges that she had in her latter years.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
was so selfless because she
Yes.
she took care of Basil
Hmm.
without complaint.
Yes.
It was until after Basil passed that she turned to take care of herself.
Hmm. Yeah.
And one of the things I was listening to your program about mental health, and one of the things we need to remember is that caregivers need care too,
Hmm.
because so many times you're giving your all to the person that you're taking care of, and people don't realize until it's almost too late that you need care as well. So, we need to take time out. And if we could assist, if we could give that person a couple hours for themselves and you sit in with the person who is unwell, and let's do our bit to help. So,
Yeah,
just look out for.
absolutely. Yes, look out for each other in the way that people from Piti Martinique and Carriacou do. One of my best friends is from Carriacou, and I remember when my mom died, and the entire the guys who I lived with them at the time on Church Street. I've never seen such unity. You guys stick together
You
in a
know,
way
my,
that's really impressive.
my mother used to say the reason why she have all that children is so that we could be each other's best friends.
Yeah.
And a lot of people refer to us as the clan. Even when my aunt who brought Madonna up passed, and it was a celebration of life. I remember we were in that house for hours after, just talking and reconnecting. And we gather every Wednesday. We jokingly say we gather to mind one another business, but we update each other on who's traveling, who need to look after whose house, or throw an eye on the children, and we cook and we say who is the best for that week, who cooked the best. We play cards, and that's how Pitomatic people do it. You know, we
Yeah.
have to stick together because as Jojo said just now, when you move to Grenada, you need to be strong. Because I used to be laughed at too. They used to say, oh, Pitomatic people sing, they don't talk. And boy, could Madonna used to sing. That girl could sing. And it's when
Yeah.
when Jojo said that, it brought tears to my, because
Hmm.
it's,
Hmm. Yeah.
in a word, the only word I have from Madonna is amazing.
Hmm. Absolutely. A quintessential Grenadian woman, a quintessential P.T. Martinican woman, Grenada Caricom P.T. Martinique, certainly would miss the great person that was Sister Madonna Harford. Sharon, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. The circumstances are tough, but certainly it would be remiss of me if George, if I did not honor George by having you guys. We have to do a Chimers reunion
All
with
right.
Margaret, yourself, and Mr. Basinski and others.
You know, George is still very much in my heart.
Yeah.
And, I actually dreamt him because I used to cry about George. I miss George so much because he was my
Yeah.
go-to after my mother passed. He was
Hmm.
my sounding board for almost any plan I had in my life. And one night I dreamt he come and he said, "Come on, Shay, I was ready." And I had to force myself to stop, let him rest in peace and stop bothering George.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
So,
May he
yeah,
continue to
we
rest
should
in
be.
peace. May his legacy live on. Yes,
Amen.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, Sharon Roberts. Sharon Roberts is the cousin, the very close cousin of the late, great Madonna Harford. Again, we extend our deepest condolences to Madonna Harford's family, her children. I happen to know Shireen, one of them, very personally. There are others as well, but I extend, on behalf of the Bubb Report, our deepest condolences to the family. Sharon just announced that the funeral will be on the 27th of July at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in the town of St. George. On behalf of the hardworking producers of the Bubb Report, I want to especially shout out uh, my associate producer this week, Rian Charles, for really doing some great work in getting our panel together. So, on behalf of all of us, we thank you again. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb. We thank you for watching this week's installment of the Bubb Report. Until next week, have a safe week. Bye bye.